Welcome to Good Screenwriting. I'm Trevor Meyer, and today we're going to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. All right, now, this is the third version of Spider-Man we've seen in the last 15 years or so. 15 years. First Spider-Man came out in 2002. This is 2017. So, a new Spider-Man on average every 5 years. It's kind of crazy if you think about like the longevity of some of the James Bonds, but I guess if you consider Batman, then Spider-Man's nothing, all right? But yeah, Michael Keaton, speaking of Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, and Ben Affleck, all within a period of about 20 years or so. Uh, so, yeah, okay, I guess it's not that bad. You compare it to something like Wolverine, where Hugh Jackman plays him for 17 years, or even Iron Man, where Tony Stark is played by Robert Downey Jr. for about 10 years now. So sometimes they stick around, sometimes they don't. But this movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, while I was watching it, I was thinking, this is good. This is really good. I don't think I like it as much as the original two Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire movies. I thought that the first one was more iconic. I thought the second one went deeper with the characters and all that. So I was going to rank this one third, my third favorite Spider-Man movie. And then, then when it was over, I went and I watched the first Spider-Man and the second Spider-Man because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And you know what? Spider-Man Homecoming is my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. Because I guess I was misremembering the first two Spider-Man movies. And I've seen them since the first time I saw them, but I was in high school when the first one came out, and I was in high school when the second one came out. So to me, they had a huge impact because I was just a little bit younger than Peter Parker was in those movies. So it had a big impact on me as a teenager to want to have those powers and swing from buildings and stuff like that and be able to do all kinds of cool things and secretly be a superhero even though I'm really a nerd. All right. So here's what I noticed. All right. And even the Amazing Spider-Man. Let's give that some love too, because Spider-Man 3 is not good. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not good. The Amazing Spider-Man, however, is at least good. It's not great, but it's good. All right? It gets a lot of bad press for being unoriginal and, I don't know, redoing the origin story all over again, which this does not do. Okay? They did learn from the mistakes that were made by the people who made Amazing Spider-Man. So let's run through the list here. The first Spider-Man, now in retrospect, what are the pros of Spider-Man? Really iconic, particularly the first time he climbs up a wall and swings from his web and stuff like that. It was the first Spider-Man movie. It was. I mean, it blew everyone away that they could do a movie like that. It really takes its time. Uncle Ben doesn't get shot until 45 minutes into the movie. They really let his origin story breathe. And they have this great kind of perfect balance where it's 100% the collision course between Peter Parker and Norman Osborn, Spider-Man and Green Goblin. So, in the first half of the first Spider-Man movie, you've got Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, and he takes up most of the time, and they give Willem Dafoe, Norman Osborn, a little bit of time, all right? In the second half, once they've kind of played out a lot of Spider-Man's story, then Norman takes over the movie. All right, and it's a lot of Norman and a little bit of Peter, So it's perfectly paced. They didn't try to jam pack it full of too much stuff. They gave Spider-Man's story as much room as it needed and filled up the rest of the screen time with Norman Osborn stuff. And it came out to like almost a perfect 2-hour movie, where there was nothing extra and they weren't leaving anything out. It was perfectly balanced. The second one went deeper into the characters and had deeper themes, and in many ways was a more mature film than the first one. But it was much more leisurely in its pacing, and it didn't have like the domino effect of the first movie, where A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. It's more like Peter gets fired from his job, and he confesses to Aunt May that he was responsible for Uncle Ben's death, and he goes to Mary Jane's play, and he talks to Otto Octavius about how to win Mary Jane over, and he rides in an elevator. And these scenes could have been shuffled around in almost any order. There's no rhyme or reason to the sequence of events. It's just a lot of conversations with various characters about various topics, all kind of, jumbled up together. So it doesn't have the momentum of the first one, but it goes a little bit deeper into Peter's character. So Spider-Man 3, I don't really want to talk about. The Amazing Spider-Man, they took kind of a Batman Begins approach with it. They went deep into his backstory with flashbacks and stuff like that, and it was about his parents, not his aunt and uncle. But there was a lack of visual style there. I mean, if you go and look at the first Spider-Man again, everything at Oscorp is green, all right? So Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. The paint on the walls is green. The logo on the outside of the building is green. The exit sign is green. If it was done by Mark Webb, like in the vein of The Amazing Spider-Man, everything would have been brown and gray with a normal red exit sign. So Sam Raimi definitely brought like a comic book horror comedy kind of spontaneity to it. Amazing Spider-Man was more of an indie feel, It was a little bit of Footloose, a little bit of Breakfast Club, It's like it was still good, really good acting. Didn't quite hit it on the nose as far as what Spider-Man should feel like to me. Amazing Spider-Man 2, again, they messed up, man. They messed up. Don't want to talk about it. Spider-Man Homecoming, though. Let's talk right about the villain of the movie, the Vulture. All right. First off, okay, I'm going to go into spoiler territory in a minute, but Michael Keaton, fantastic as the Vulture. He's a great villain. He's more of a blue-collar guy. He's not, I like their angle they took with him where he's not a master thief. He's not, some great super criminal. He's just this blue-collar guy who got screwed over, and now he's just making an opportunity for himself in America. It's mafia style. The land of opportunity through crime, So, because he feels like he's the little guy and the man screwed him over, The one percenters took everything from us, so we got to make our own way by any means necessary. So, it's timely. It's not old-fashioned the way that the Sam Raimi ones were. Because, really, there's an interesting battle between timeliness and timelessness. I guess the Sam Raimi movies are timeless. In other words, you could play some 50 years ago and they would still work. This movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, is very much of our time. Like, it's modern. I liked it when he's going to the homecoming dance. The cliche is he doesn't know how to tie a tie, so Aunt May shows him how to tie a tie. Of course she would know, right? No, she doesn't. In this movie, they both have to look it up on YouTube, which is how I learn how to tie a tie. I watch it on YouTube. All right, that's what we do in this modern era, So they do stuff that they've never done before in Spider-Man movies. In fact, I was doing some research on this, and they specifically made a laundry list of things that were done in the previous movies that they did not want to do this time around, because the mistake that Amazing Spider-Man made was it retreaded a lot of the same ground that the first movie already covered. So it became kind of like, all right, let's do the whole thing again, you know. And they did it in a different way, but not different enough, in my opinion. So this movie, you get to see all kinds of things you never saw before, but also there's no Harry Osborn, there's no Mary Jane Watson. More on that in a second. There's no J. Jonah Jameson or Uncle Ben. His parents aren't in it. We got this new character, Ned, who we've never seen before in a movie. And we have Liz and Michelle. A whole bunch of characters we've never seen before. Adrian Toomes is the villain. All right, so... And Tony Stark. We get Tony Stark. Let's not forget that. All right, so... Bottom line, in the non-spoiler section of this review, really great movie, really fun movie, really entertaining, lots of action, lots of humor. It's the best of all the Spider-Man movies. I give it a 5 out of 5, all right? Now, we're going into spoiler territory, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Michael Keaton as the Vulture is good. Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes, a.k.a. the father of Peter Parker's girlfriend, even better. Fantastic. Amazing. All right? Best scene in the movie. Hands down. With all the action and the humor and the stunts that they got going on. Best scene in the movie is... Best sequence in the movie is when Peter goes to pick up his homecoming date, Liz, opens up the door, and it's Liz's dad. Guess who? The Vulture. The Vulture. Peter's going to the homecoming dance with the daughter of the main villain. All right. So we got this great thing where Peter knows, as soon as he sees him, because he saw him on the ferry earlier, he's like, oh, crap. Liz's dad is the Vulture. And they've never met before. And then we got this great scene where Adrian is driving Liz and Peter to the homecoming dance. All right, he's the chaperone. And on the way there, while they're in the car, Liz starts talking about how Peter knows Spider-Man and how they always, you know, they were like always like in the same area at the same time, but never in the same place at the same time. And as she's going on and Adrian's starting to think about it, he's like, you know, I know you from somewhere, right? I mean, even your voice sounds familiar to me. And as he's talking to him, he's figuring out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And it happens very quickly, but very gradually and believably. So from the time they leave the house to the time they get to the homecoming dance, Adrian Toomes figures out who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man knows who he is, and there's this great thing where he's looking in the rearview mirror at Peter, and they're stopped at a red light, so you can see his face is lit up with red. It's kind of sinister looking when you just see his eyes in the rearview mirror, and it's red. But then he says the line, "Good old Spider-Man," you know, talking about Spider-Man. Liz is completely oblivious to this whole thing. And then the light turns green when he says that, and then he's lit up just like the Vulture mask when he's wearing his little flight suit. There's a green light inside the mask. And it's like, that's just a great little visual trick that they do there. And that's where you get to the scene from the trailer where they get to the homecoming dance. He tells Liz, he says, hey, you want to give Pete and me a minute? I got to give him the dad talk, you know. And she's like, don't let him intimidate you. And she leaves. It's all good fun. And then Adrian Toomes turns around and he does that line from the trailer where he says, don't interfere with my business again or I will kill you and everyone that you love. But he does it all for his family. That's the thing. He's not trying to take over the world. He's not a supervillain. He's, at the beginning of the movie, he's a construction worker who loses his job, basically. You know, he has his own construction business. He buys a bunch of trucks to clean up Wait for it, the Battle of New York. All right, he's at Avengers Tower cleaning up the mess that the Avengers made, and then the Department of Damage Control, working with Tony Stark, shows up and says, "Hey, you private contractors, you're out of here. Government's taken over." And Adrian and his crew take home a bunch of the Chitauri weaponry, and that's how they make the Vulture suit and the Shocker gauntlets and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. All right, so also, I want to lay to rest this rumor or theory that too many villains is why Spider-Man 3 failed, or too many villains is why Amazing Spider-Man 2 failed. All right. In Spider-Man 3, you have the Sandman, you have Venom, and you have the New Goblin. 3 villains that I'm aware of. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, you have the Green Goblin, Electro, and Rhino. 3 villains, right? In this movie, now granted, they one of them is just like a cameo, but even including cameos, in Spider-Man Homecoming you have the Vulture, you have the Tinkerer, who was the very first Spider-Man villain. I think it was like in the second issue of Spider-Man after the Uncle Ben story. The Tinkerer. You have 2 different versions of the Shocker, and you have Scorpion at the last minute. Pretty sure it's Scorpion. That's 5 Spider-Man villains. Now you could say, well, Scorpion doesn't really count. That was just a little cameo. He was only in it for a few minutes. Yeah, so was Rhino, all right, from Amazing Spider-Man 2, okay? And the 2 Shockers, one of them's the Shocker. He dies, and then the other Shocker takes over. So, this goes to what I've been teaching all along, which is if you split every character up in the movie into 2 teams, Team A and Team B, Team Peter and Team Adrian, you eliminate the whole complication of having too many villains, all right? The problem with Spider-Man 3 is that every villain has their own agenda, all right? Spider-Man, he wants to just, I guess, live his life. I don't know. He wants to marry Mary Jane, I guess. Sandman wants to steal enough money for his daughter. Venom wants revenge against Peter Parker for getting him fired. And New Goblin wants revenge against Peter for killing Norman Osborn, all right? And Amazing Spider-Man 2, Rhino wants to steal stuff. And the Goblin wants revenge against Peter for not giving him blood or something like that. And Electro wants revenge against Spider-Man because he forgot his name or some shit. I don't know. Stupid. All right, but this movie, Adrian Toomes just wants to steal stuff to provide a life for his family. It's like Breaking Bad, honestly. Real life screws him over, so he becomes a criminal, and he does really well at it. All right, and he starts off just providing for his family, and then all of a sudden they got a ritzy house in the suburbs with cool cars and all of that stuff, because he's getting kind of greedy about it. But he's fiercely defending his family. It's very primal that way. It's like Animal Planet, He doesn't care about the rest of the world. He will fiercely defend himself and his family. All right? It's territorial. It's tribal. I like it. He's not a supervillain. He's a thief. And a family man. Blue-collar thief. All right? But the Shocker and the Tinkerer and the Scorpion are all either part of his crew or one of his business partners. All right? They're all roped into his goal, all right? You have to create a hierarchy of some sort. You can't have a bunch of villains with free agency who are all pursuing their own agendas, all right? So, Adrian wants to steal stuff to provide for his family. Shocker wants to help him steal stuff. The other Shocker wants to help him steal stuff. The Tinkerer wants to help him steal stuff. The Scorpion wants to do a business deal with him so they can steal stuff. You know, like they're all working together to achieve the same goal, and that's how you avoid too many characters, too many villains. All right. The Fate of the Furious, Fate of the Furious, Fast and Furious movies do this really well in the later movies, where you have like 7, 8, 9 characters as the heroes. So how is that not too many? Or furthermore, Ocean's 11. Well, one, they're often all in the same room at the same time. So you can save a lot of screen time. So rather than having a conversation between two people, and then another scene where there's two people, and another scene where there's two people, and having a lot of these intimate moments that would take up the entire film, plus more, you put all 10 of them in a room together, and they can just have a group conversation and cover all that ground in a little tiny bit of time. So if all of the people are pursuing the same goal, then you don't have to explain what they all want. All right? So it just streamlines the whole thing. Too many villains is a myth. That's not what's wrong with Spider-Man 3. What's wrong with Spider-Man 3 is too many agendas, too many goals, too many conflicting plot lines, all right? There wasn't time for that. You could write a whole season of a TV show based on those interweaving subplots, all right? Same with Amazing Spider-Man 2. They didn't have time to develop things correctly because they gave every villain their own agenda, all right? And there's not time in a movie for that, okay? Let's see if we can sum up some points here. The ending of this movie is fantastic. It's my favorite ending of all time for a Spider-Man movie. First movie ends with, who am I? I'm Spider-Man, swinging through the city. Second one ends with him getting together with Mary Jane, swinging through the city. Third one ends with him in a bar, diner, restaurant place where he makes up with Mary Jane. Amazing Spider-Man ends with him swinging through the city. Amazing Spider-Man 2 ends with him fighting the Rhino. And Spider-Man Homecoming. He's got this cool suit that Tony Stark gave him. Tony Stark takes it away from him. He's back to his homemade hoodie and jeans costume. And then after he proves himself, Tony gives him the super cool suit back. And it's this big heroic moment where he's standing in his bedroom. He's got the Spider-Man suit on without the mask. Camera rotates around him, big hero shot, and then it stops, and you see in the background Aunt May standing in the doorway. And she's looking at him, and she's like, okay, it's one shot, and this happens very quickly. Camera rotates around him, reveals Aunt May standing in the doorway in the background, and the last line of the movie is, what the fuck? They stop halfway through the F-bomb. It's the closest Marvel has ever gotten to an F-bomb in a Marvel movie. It's the best possible use of it. Yes, the last line of the movie is, what the fuck? Cut to credits, all right? And they've answered definitively after like 7 movies, if you count Civil War, that Aunt May does definitely know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And it was the best possible reveal. Better than I Am Your Father. Not really. But that was one of the best reveals ever. And then the post-credit scene with Captain America. Throughout the movie, Captain America does these cheesy educational videos for high schools and all that stuff. There's one where it's like, welcome to the Captain America Fitness Challenge. Your gym teacher here will show you everything you need to become a super soldier, just like me, you know? Or when Peter's in detention, he's watching a video of Captain America saying, so you're in detention. You know what you did is wrong, now how are you going to make it right? So the movie ends with one of those little educational videos by Captain America, and he's filling the whole screen, and you're just watching one of his little clips, and he says, you know, let me tell you about one of the most important qualities that any soldier or student can have, patience. patience pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you put a lot of time and effort into something that really wasn't worth it. And he's talking about, of course, you just sat through the credits and there's nothing really good at the end. And then he turns to the camera guy and says, how many more of these do we have to do? Done. Movie's over. So between those two moments, that was just enough to push it over the edge to a 5-star rating from me. It went out on a high note. It got better and better as the movie went on because the Vulture character just got more and more interesting as it went on. Tom Holland, greatest Spider-Man. Oh, I want to talk about one other thing. At the end of this movie, they revealed that Michelle Jones goes by the nickname MJ. Now, at first, that was a big hang-up for me. And I'm like, she's really not Mary Jane. Like, she's literally not Mary Jane. She's got a different name. She's got a different personality. Nothing about her is Mary Jane. Thank God I did the research. She's not Mary Jane, all right? She's called MJ as an homage to Mary Jane. But in theory, in one of the future sequels, they will introduce the real Mary Jane Watson. So don't worry, they didn't mess up Mary Jane. I thought they did, but they didn't. It's not the real MJ. This is a pre-MJ, you know? Smallville style. This is Henry James Olsen. It's not James Bartholomew Olsen, all right? It's not Jimmy. It's his little brother Jimmy, all right? So, yes, one day there will be a real Mary Jane Watson. But for now, we have Michelle Jones, MJ, and she's going to be a lot of fun, I can tell. Ned, is it Ned Leeds? Will he someday become the Hobgoblin? Who knows? We'll find out. But fantastic movie. It's amazing. It's the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. And the Vulture, it's going to be a controversial statement here, but the Vulture not only is my favorite Spider-Man villain, he's my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe villain. Now, you might be thinking, no, it's Loki. It's obviously Loki. Loki has always been the best Marvel villain. Yeah, but one thing to take into account is that he's been in like 3 movies, all right? He was in Thor, The Avengers, and Thor the Dark World so far. So he's had a lot of time to explore different dimensions of the character. If Vulture were in 3 movies, he would beat Loki easily. But since that's not a fair comparison, I would compare them on a movie-by-movie basis, so separate Loki into 3 different characters. So, the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming versus the Loki in Thor, Vulture's better. Loki is a little bit softer, a little bit weaker. Vulture is vicious, all right? The Vulture versus Loki from Avengers, Vulture is better. Loki's kind of one-dimensional. He's a trickster character. He just wants to rule the world. Vulture has a lot more dimension to him, all right? And in Thor the Dark World, Loki's not the villain. It's Malekith. So I have to say that if you compare them on a movie-by-movie basis and don't take the entire series into account, for this single movie, Vulture is the best Marvel villain ever. You can even go outside the MCU. He's better than Howard Saint. He's better than Doctor Doom. He's better than Lucifer from Ghost Rider. He's better than Kingpin, you know. He's better than any of the TV villains. Vulture. Vulture is my favorite Marvel villain of all time. All right? Movies, TV shows, whatever. He was awesome. Perfect casting, perfect writing, perfect characterization. It's brilliant. Not to take away from Spider-Man, but man, they say that your hero's only as good as his villain. Fantastic villain, so it's a fantastic hero, all right? Great movie, great movie. I could go on for a lot longer about this, but I got to cut this short, all right? So, 5 out of 5. Amazing Spider-Man. Not the Amazing Spider-Man, but it's an amazing Spider-Man movie. Go see it if you haven't seen it already. I think it's still in theaters right now, so you still have a chance. But if not, pick it up when it comes out on home video, all right? This is Good Screenwriting, and I'm Trevor Meyer. See you next time.